My sister told everyone I betrayed our family's trust, ruining my reputation, and when I confronted her, she said I was being dramatic and should just move on. It started with a phone call, a seemingly ordinary conversation that turned into the moment everything I thought I knew about my family came crashing down. My mother's voice was sharp, uncharacteristically cold. "Why didn't you tell us what you did?" she demanded, her words slicing through me like a blade. I froze, the confusion hitting me like a wave. "What are you talking about?" Her answer came like a hammer blow. "Your sister told us everything. How could you betray us like this?" Betray? My mind raced, searching for any clue as to what she could possibly mean. But before I could ask, she continued, her voice trembling with hurt and anger. "How could you go behind our backs and—" She stopped herself, as if saying it out loud would make it worse. "I just can't believe it. We trusted you." I tried to respond, but she had already hung up. The rest of the day passed in a haze. I called her back repeatedly, but she didn't answer. My father wouldn't pick up either. It wasn't until hours later, when my younger brother finally texted me, that I began to piece together the accusation that had shattered my family's trust. "I heard about what happened," he wrote. "Why didn't you tell us you were the one who leaked the family's private matters to outsiders?" Mom's devastated. Leaked private matters? Outsiders? None of it made sense. Then it hit me, my sister. She had always been the one who knew how to twist words, to turn situations to her advantage. We'd had our differences, sure, but I never imagined she would go this far. The betrayal felt surreal. I immediately called her, my hands trembling with anger and disbelief. She answered on the second ring, her voice calm, almost smug. "I don't know why you're so upset," she said, cutting me off before I could even speak. "I only told them the truth." "What truth?" I demanded, my voice shaking. "What are you talking about? I didn't do anything." "Oh, please," she said with a laugh. "Don't play innocent. Everyone knows you're the one who told Aunt Linda about Dad's health issues. And if you didn't want people to think you were disloyal, maybe you should have kept your mouth shut." I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. Aunt Linda? I hadn't even spoken to her in months. The last time I had mentioned anything about Dad's health, it had been in passing, to my sister herself, in a private conversation. "You told me that in confidence," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "And I kept it quiet, until I couldn't anymore," she replied, her tone dripping with false righteousness. "They deserve to know what kind of person you are." Her words were a punch to the gut. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. She had deliberately taken something I trusted her with and twisted it into a weapon to use against me. The next few days were a blur of phone calls, confrontations, and heartache. My parents wouldn't listen to my side of the story, too hurt and angry to see the cracks in my sister's version of events. Friends and extended family started to distance themselves, the whispers of betrayal following me wherever I went. I couldn't escape the growing feeling of isolation, the sense that I had been cast out of my own family. And through it all, my sister carried on as if nothing had happened, her smile as bright and fake as ever at family gatherings. I knew I couldn't let her get away with this. I had to find a way to expose the truth, to clear my name and show everyone who she really was. But the path ahead felt daunting, and I couldn't shake the fear that, no matter what I did, the damage had already been done. For the first time in my life, I felt completely alone. The days that followed felt like walking through a storm. Every call I made to explain myself seemed to hit a wall of disbelief. My parents were cold and distant, their responses clipped. "We need time to process this," my father had said when I begged him to listen. "Your sister has no reason to lie." No reason to lie? The words stung. I wanted to scream that her reasons were written all over her actions, her constant need to be the center of attention, the way she thrived on being the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. But they couldn't, or wouldn't, see it. Family gatherings became a nightmare. The tension was suffocating. My mother barely spoke to me, and my father avoided my eyes. The worst part was the judgment from others. My aunt, who had always been warm and supportive, now looked at me with thinly veiled disappointment. "Why would you do something like that?" she asked me quietly during one family dinner. "I didn't," I replied, my voice cracking. "I swear, I didn't." But her skeptical look told me she didn't believe me. My sister sat across the table, smiling sweetly, as if none of this had anything to do with her. The weight of the accusations followed me everywhere. At work, I struggled to focus, distracted by the growing sense of helplessness. Even my closest friends seemed hesitant to get involved. "I don't want to take sides," one of them had said, their tone apologetic but firm. The isolation was unbearable. I felt like I was drowning, unable to find a lifeline. But amid the chaos, I started to notice cracks in my sister's story. It began with a casual comment from my cousin, who mentioned that my sister had been spending a lot of time with Aunt Linda recently. "They've gotten really close," she said, her tone almost conspiratorial. "Your sister's been telling her all sorts of things." A flicker of suspicion ignited in my mind. My sister's accusations suddenly felt more calculated. If she had been the one feeding Aunt Linda information, it was entirely possible she had spun her own narrative, using me as the scapegoat. I decided to confront Aunt Linda directly. When I called her, she sounded surprised but agreed to meet for coffee. Sitting across from her, I laid everything out, my voice steady but desperate. "Aunt Linda, I need you to tell me what my sister said about me. I need to understand where all of this is coming from." She hesitated, her eyes flickering with uncertainty. "She said you were the one who told me about your father's condition. She made it sound like you were trying to stir up drama, to create a rift in the family." My stomach churned. "I didn't," I said firmly. "I never said anything to you about Dad's health. I haven't even spoken to you about personal matters in months." Her expression softened, a glimmer of doubt creeping into her eyes. "She was very convincing," she admitted. "But now that you're saying this, I don't know. Maybe I should have asked more questions." It wasn't the full vindication I had hoped for, but it was a start. I left the meeting feeling a small spark of hope. If I could sow doubt in Aunt Linda's mind, maybe I could begin to unravel my sister's web of lies. But I knew it wouldn't be enough to clear my name completely. My sister was skilled at manipulating people, and I would need solid proof to expose her. The thought was daunting, but it gave me a sense of purpose, a reason to keep fighting. I wasn't going to let her win. The small spark of doubt I planted in Aunt Linda's mind gave me the push I needed to dig deeper. If my sister had fabricated this story to tarnish my reputation, there had to be more lies lurking beneath the surface. I was determined to find them. The first step was to retrace the timeline. When had my sister started spending more time with Aunt Linda? What exactly had she said to her and to the rest of the family? I began reaching out to relatives one by one, trying to piece together her narrative. Most of them were hesitant to talk, wary of being caught in the middle of our conflict. But one cousin, Sophia, finally opened up. "She was saying things about you for weeks before the whole health issue came up," Sophia admitted over the phone. "Little things, like how you've been acting off lately or how you don't seem to care about the family as much anymore." I didn't think much of it at the time, but now, she trailed off, her voice uncertain. My stomach tightened. My sister hadn't just told one lie, she had been laying the groundwork for months, planting seeds of doubt about me long before the accusation about Dad's health. "She's been working on this for a while," I said, more to myself than to Sophia. Sophia hesitated before responding. "You didn't hear this from me, but she mentioned something about wanting to get closer to Aunt Linda because she thought she'd inherit something from her. I don't know if it's true, but it makes you wonder." It all started to make sense. My sister wasn't just trying to ruin my reputation, she was positioning herself as the trusted family member, the one who could do no wrong, to secure Aunt Linda's favor. Armed with this new information, I started combing through old messages and emails, looking for anything that could prove my innocence or reveal her manipulation. That's when I stumbled upon a voice message she had sent me months ago, after one of our rare arguments. In it, she was venting about how Aunt Linda was always prying into everyone's business. "I don't even like talking to her," she had said. "But, "Hey, if it means staying in her good graces, I'll play the part." It was subtle, but it was enough. The message painted a clear picture of her motivations. She was willing to manipulate and lie to get what she wanted. I decided it was time to confront her. When I showed up at her house, she looked surprised but quickly masked it with her usual confidence. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her tone light but guarded. "I want to talk," I said firmly. "About everything you've been saying." She crossed her arms, her smile tight. "I don't know what you mean." I pulled out my phone and played the voice message. Her expression faltered for a split second before she recovered. "That doesn't prove anything," she said, her voice sharper now. "You're just trying to twist things to make me look bad." "No," I replied, meeting her gaze. "You've been twisting things to make me look bad. I know what you've been doing, planting doubts, spreading lies, all to make yourself look better." Her composure cracked. "You always play the victim," she snapped. "Maybe if you were a better sibling, I wouldn't have to clean up your messes." Her words stung, but they also revealed the truth. She had no real defense, only deflection. I stood my ground. "This ends now. I'm going to tell everyone the truth, and this time, I have the proof to back it up." She glared at me, but I could see the panic in her eyes. She knew she had lost control of the narrative. As I walked away, I felt a mix of anger and relief. The fight wasn't over yet. I still had to clear my name with the rest of the family, but for the first time, I felt like I had the upper hand. The confrontation with my sister was just the beginning. I knew she wouldn't admit to her lies outright, but her reaction told me everything I needed to know. She was afraid. And fear made her sloppy. The next family gathering was my chance to set the record straight. I walked into the room with my head held high, my heart pounding. My sister was already there, her smile tight, a flicker of unease crossing her face when she saw me. I waited until everyone had settled before I spoke. "I need to address something," I began, my voice steady but firm. "There's been a lot said about me recently, and I think it's time the truth comes out." The room fell silent, all eyes on me. My mother's expression was guarded, my father's skeptical. My sister, sitting across from me, leaned back in her chair, feigning indifference. I pulled out my phone and played the voice message. As the recording echoed through the room, the shift in energy was palpable. My mother's eyes widened, my father frowned, and Aunt Linda leaned forward, her brow furrowed. "Why would you say that?" Aunt Linda asked, turning to my sister. My sister stammered, her confident facade crumbling. "It's not what it sounds like," she said quickly. "I was just venting." "Everyone does that." "Venting?" I repeated, my voice rising. "You didn't just vent. You twisted the truth, you lied, and you made me out to be the villain to cover your own tracks." The room buzzed with murmurs. My sister's face turned red as she realized the tide was turning. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she finally admitted, her voice barely audible. "But it did," my father said sharply. "And you owe your sibling an apology." Her apology was hollow, forced out under the weight of everyone's judgment, but I didn't care. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. As the gathering ended, my mother pulled me aside. "I'm so sorry we didn't listen to you," she said, tears in her eyes. "We should have known better." It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was a start. Over the next few weeks, I worked to rebuild the trust that had been broken. It wasn't easy, some relationships would take time to heal, but the truth was finally out. As for my sister, she kept her distance, her usual confidence dimmed. She had always thrived on control, but now the family saw her for who she truly was. In the end, I learned a painful but valuable lesson: trust is fragile, and even those closest to us can betray it. But I also learned that truth has a way of coming to light, no matter how deeply it's buried. And as I walked away from the storm she created, I felt stronger, knowing that I had fought for myself, and won.